All right, welcome in for our Sunday Night Live at 5. We're going to talk about 5 tools to help with emotional regulation and what is artificial anxiety, so to speak. A lot of people say, "Oh, I got anxiety," and what they're really saying is, "I am causing myself more harm. This anxiety would not be there if I wasn't doing these other things over here." And I'll explain that when we get to the nutrition side because that's where it kind of comes out as artificial. We do have anxiety. I'm not downplaying any anxiety that people have, but a lot of times we're stabbing ourselves and then claiming that we are bleeding. It's like, well, if you would stop stabbing yourself, you would stop bleeding. So these are going to be some tools that are going to help with that because as our anxiety increases, it's almost like our foot is on the gas pedal and we keep hitting bumps and we're like, man, the road is bumpy. Well, it's bumpy because we are putting our foot on the gas pedal and we are driving faster through all the obstacles instead of trying to slow life down a little bit, understand what's going on, process what's going on, and actually respond to it and not react to it. And then when we are going too fast, we react and then we create more problems, which create more anxiety. If we could slow the whole system down, if we'd slow the body down, if we'd slow the reaction time down, we're gonna be able to respond to what's going on in a healthy manner and not create more problems down line, which is what is going on in today's world. Is that we're so in a hurry to get results, we're so in a hurry to get resolved to things that we don't properly process and think through what's going on, and we don't look at the consequences of our actions. I always say that, you know, in high school, I wish that they could give me the ability to do math, but not in the way we think. I would rather have the ability to calculate the future cost of the current decisions I'm making. And that calculation is something that we never think about before we react a lot of times. But these 5 tools are going to help you kind of regulate your system a little bit. It's going to help you to come out of fight or flight because most of these reactions come from a fight or flight state. So those unregulated emotions that we have creates chaos, right? Emotional regulation creates clarity. The more clarity that I can get, the more I can walk through life in a much easier fashion and kind of mitigate that anxiety and its effects on me. Okay. Regulation is the ability to feel fully without becoming flooded. So I'm not allowing those emotions to overcome me. I'm not allowing them to overtake me. I'm not allowing them to control my reaction to the stimulus that I have out there. Right? That's what regulation is really about. It's about saying that it's not about stuffing them down, right? Society has, I think, told people that it's better to just don't feel anything. That creates problems too because it just builds a different type of emotion. So if we're upset with somebody for crossing a boundary and we do not say anything to them, yeah, we've overcome that emotion, but what we're going to do is it kind of bursts out in other places because now we have resentment towards them. It's going to make us short with them. It's going to make us passive aggressive with them. It's going to make us not. We're going to avoid that conflict, but what we're doing is we're having internal conflict now. When we want to talk about anxiety, it's artificially created by not speaking up for ourselves. And I get it. A lot of us have been in situations where we weren't taken seriously, so we don't speak up, or we were silenced, or we were punished for speaking up. I get that, and I completely understand that. But if we don't learn to regulate that and push past it, and then walk away from those type of people, then we are creating our own anxiety by staying in situations that are not serving us and they are hindering us at that point. When we're dysregulated, everything is going to end up feeling urgent, right? It feels like we have to make a action right now. When we're in that fight or flight state and we're dysregulated, it also makes everything feel personal, like a personal attack to us, right? Or like it's a threat. And the chronic activation of the nervous system creates 90% of the problems. And people want to medicate themselves out of it. And there's proof that, some medications can help when it's that bad, but 90% of the time, if you're turning towards medication instead of doing what's necessary, you're not willing to do the actual work to get out of the anxiety. You're looking for a magic pill. Looking for a magic pill is what got you into that situation by trying to take the easy route by not having conflict, by not saying something, by not regulating emotions. You were taking the easy route, and that's what caused the anxiety. So now taking a pill is not going to, it may minimize the effects short term, but long term, it's not going to do anything. So we've got to learn how to regulate our emotions so that way it doesn't have long term effects on us. Okay. Emotional regulation doesn't remove the wave. It doesn't remove the motion. It teaches you how to surf it. It teaches you how to react to it or respond to it and not react to it. Okay. So think of emotional regulations kind of like shock absorbers on the car, right? The road is going to be bumpy no matter what I do, but by having emotional reaction or emotional regulation, I'm allowing some time for those wheels to kind of bump up and down so it does not change the trajectory of the car. If I didn't have those shock absorbers, I would be hitting the ceiling and bouncing all over the place, and it would hurt a lot. So by regulating my emotions, I'm cushioning myself from all of these things that are going on around us. Okay. So again, there's shock absorbers in the car. Without them, every bump in the road, the conflict, the stress, the criticism, it's going to feel 10 times worse than it actually is, right? And it's going to abuse our system. Okay. So it's no surprise that as we move into tool one here, I mean, I've written an entire book on this. Okay, breath work. It's the remote control for the nervous system. It's the only thing that transcends both the conscious and subconscious mind that I can control that actually can regulate the body's nervous system reaction. So the sympathetic side of the brain, which is the fight or flight state, can be regulated with multiple things, but a lot of them aren't stimuluses that we can control. The only stimulus that we can control input-wise to the nervous system that actually can control the nervous system's reaction is our breath. So breath work is always my go-to as the first way to start teaching someone how to regulate their nervous system. This one's not a magic bullet, though. This doesn't just, you don't just start breathing for a couple days and like suddenly you're better. We have to breathe consciously under stress with one of the different methods I'm going to give you for a prolonged period, for months, for almost a year before you're going to start seeing major effects of it. Now, I don't know if you guys have seen, there's like a Shaolin monk that's all over the internet all the time. And funny enough, as I was doing this course, I went onto Instagram to just kind of peruse some stuff and look at some comments that I've had from people. And he's on there, and the first thing he says is the same thing, that breath work is the only thing that can truly, that's the basis and the building block of all nervous system regulation, essentially. That's why monks use that. That's why monks do breathing on a regular basis. And then on top of it, then they add in other things like the VU sound that they use, and it's a somatic technique, right? So breathing is the start point to get our nervous system to be able to be regulated, right? It's the fastest way that we can shift the state in our body. And there's a few different methods. And if you get my book goes into much more detail on each one of these methods and why they work in different ways. But each one of the breathing techniques has different reasoning behind it and the reasons why we use it, because it's going to signal different things to the body. The way we breathe can change the way the body is reacting if I can wire it properly, right? When you slow exhale, right? So there's a couple different methods that I'm looking for a very long exhale that is longer than the inhale. When I do that, I'm activating the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the nerve that runs from the base of the neck all the way through all of your guts, essentially. And that vagus nerve can stimulate all of those things. So when I slow exhale, I activate that nerve and I'm going to calm the system, right? It tells my brain you're safe. That's the long exhale, right? So I have 3 proven breathing techniques, and I'm going to tell you what they do and kind of the best situations to use them in. Box breathing is the one you always hear me talk about the most, right? So the parasympathetic side of the brain, which is the logic-based side of the brain, that is the rest and digest side of the brain, that's the calm state that we want to be in, the logical state. It goes off of logic and order. It wants order, not chaos. When we breathe in a box breathing method, that's 4 seconds breathing in, 4 seconds hold, 4 seconds out, 4 seconds hold. The reason why that works, okay, the very first thing it does is going to balance the oxygen and carbon dioxide in the blood. That's the first thing. That's a big problem when we're in fight or flight state. We don't notice it. Our breathing is shallow, which means we're increasing the amount of carbon dioxide and we're decreasing the amount of oxygen because we're never getting enough oxygen. We're never expelling enough carbon dioxide. 90% of our problem a lot of times isn't that we're not getting even enough oxygen. We're not pushing out enough of the carbon dioxide, so we have no space for the oxygen in there. So we've got to make sure that we exhale all of that air. But box breathing even further, because it's a very it's a very structured way. 4, 4, 4, 4. It is very, very logical, very number based, very pop, 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 consistent on what you're doing. It is a logic base in the brain. So it's going to immediately, as you're concentrating on 4, 4, 4, 4, it's telling your brain we're in a logic state. I need to think logically. I need to act logically. It's automatically doing that. Then on top of it, obviously, like I said, it's balancing the oxygen and the carbon dioxide that we have in our bloodstream. It's going to slow your heart rate almost automatically, and that's going to steady your focus. It's going to build tolerance to stress by training the nervous system to pause before it does anything, okay? Now, this form is best for things like public speaking, high stakes conversations when you know there's going to be conflict or there's at least going to be the potential of conflict, and for good mental focus, right? The analogy is like drawing a square with your breath, okay? You're just 4 sides up, 4 seconds over, 4 seconds down, 4 seconds over. Everything is in groups of 4. It's very easy to remember when we think about it, and that's why they call it box breathing. It's my number one go-to because if somebody can't remember the other ones, this one is the easiest to remember, because when we start learning how to breathe better, fight or flight, we have to be able to be aware that I'm in fight or flight and then start breathing. And it's much, much harder to go, okay, I'm in a fight or flight. Was it 4-7-8 or 4-8-7? Which we'll talk about those in a minute. But we don't remember those things, right? So we're like, oh crap, which one is it? And then we just waste out that whole experience, and we're not able to do our breathing like we should be doing. Okay, so that is best, again, for public speaking, high stakes conversation, mental focus. It's best to recenter yourself. If you think you're heading down a wrong path, box breathing is always the best. Okay. Now, the next method I have for breathing is the 4-7-8 method. That's inhale for 4, hold for 7, exhale for 8. Notice the exhale is double the length of the inhale. Okay. And why is there always these holds in the middle, right? The hold is what tells your body to lower the actual heart rate. So when fight or flight happens, I cannot look at my body and say, hey, heart, stop beating as fast as you're beating, right? And by it beating faster, automatically it sends things into the HPA axis, the hippocampus pituitary adrenaline axis, right? It's going to activate stuff in there, and literally it's going to increase your blood pressure, all sorts of stuff. The cortisol starts going off. We have all sorts of problems. So I can't just look at my body and say, hey, heart rate, slow down. The only thing I have to control that heart rate is the breathing. So that hold portion of both the 4-4-4 method or the box breathing method and the 4-7-8 breathing method, the 7-second hold on this is done the same way. It's meant to now lower your heart rate. As I lower my heart rate, blood pressure lowers. As blood pressure lowers, my cortisol response lowers. As that lowers, then I start to relax. Okay? That's going to deepen the relaxation process. This inhale 4, 7 hold, exhale 8 is meant to deepen your relaxation, okay? So it's not really great for anxiety as much as it is for just relaxing the whole body as a whole, okay? Typically, it doesn't help with like the overthinking type things, but it does at least help a little bit, okay? We're gonna prolong that exhale. That's reducing the cortisol levels that we have in the bloodstream. It's gonna reduce the amount of cortisol that's getting produced. That's huge because that is a big regulatory stimulant in the body. Essentially, it's a hormone, so to speak, and it really does have a huge effect on how we interpret signals within the body. Okay. It induces that calm, slows the nervous system. This one is best for panic attacks when you don't know which way to go, you don't know what's going on. The first thing we need to do is just relax the body, right? A panic attack is the body literally short-circuiting. If you imagine like a live wire dancing all over the place, that's what a panic attack really is. So the first thing we have to do is kind of slow that electrical response, and one way we can do that is just this method right here. The holding portion of this really helps with somebody that's in a panic attack. Because in a panic attack, you don't have like crazy thoughts. It's like your nervous system is short-circuiting without thoughts even actually going on. You can't even control it, okay? This is for the 4-7-8 method is great if you can't fall asleep and it's like your brain is already off. You're not thinking of anything, but you just can't fall asleep. 4-7-8 method is a great way to do that because it helps you to relax, okay? It's also great for managing overwhelm. If like you know what you're doing, you've got all this process, but like it's daunting. You're like, man, I got 18 different emails to go to, and I've got to do this before I end up work. And you're starting to get a little bit of, it's not really anxiety. It's just pressure and stress at that point. This is where the 4-7-8 method, just take a couple minutes, just do a couple 4-7-8s, and it will actually calm your system enough that now we can focus and actually get through it much, much easier. Okay. And then the last method of breathing that I use is known as the double exhale breathing. Inhale for 4, exhale for 8. But what I like to tell people is you're exhaling for 8, but it's not as simple as 4 in, 8 out. It's 4 in, And then when you breathe out, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, pause, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's just a momentary pause, but it tells your brain that, hey, we need to exit fight or flight. That double exhale is going to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, because that pause and then you're interrupting the normal pattern. And that's what a lot of the nervous system is about, is interrupting the pattern that is going on in your body. So if your body is in fight or flight, the pattern is by doing the double exhale, you are now saying, hey, brain, I'm in charge here. I'm in charge of what I'm doing. The double exhale is interrupting that pattern of in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out very, very quickly. Okay. So it really, really helps to activate that parasympathetic side of the body. And it's us taking back control, grabbing ourselves by the neck and saying, I'm in control of this situation. You need to calm down right now. Okay. So it's going to help, again, reduce the heart rate. It's increasing your emotional control. This one is great for social anxiety, emotional flooding, or conflict recovery, right? It's like releasing pressure from a balloon, controlled, steady, and freeing, as opposed to just trying to let it all out all at once, okay? So when I talk about breath work, the things that I have to say before I even give people breath work is you're going to need to do this in non-stressful situations, under non-duress, essentially, right? I've got to practice this in the most calm moments of my life over and over again before my brain starts to equate that this type of breathing creates calm. So that way, as soon as I am in a duress moment, I am automatically going to go, and my brain's default is to go to this. Okay, when I used to be a shooting instructor in the military, right? We do ready up drills when they're not under stress, when they're not in combat. I don't look for them to start learning how to shoot while they're in combat being shot at. I do it when there is nothing crazy going on. There's no extra sounds. It's in a perfect environment, and I learn to perfect it there. And then I slowly add stressors to the system to get them there. So that way, when they are stressed, it is natural reaction. They're up and they're on target and they're shooting perfect every time, because it has become a natural reaction. Breath needs to be the same way. We need to start with this at an every morning kind of thing. Like every morning you wake up, the first thing you do is you do 4 iterations of box breathing and you go about your day. And then somehow, adding it in somewhere through the day. Do a 4 4 4 4 at lunch. Do one at, dinner. Do one right before bed. Add them in at random times a day. It's like a check-in with your body and saying, okay, I'm recentering myself. Even if I wasn't in an anxiety state, I can recenter myself right now. And your body starts to get comfortable and used to that. And then over time, it actually will default to that when you end up in a stressful situation, if that makes sense. Which means you need to know what it feels like when your nervous system is out of whack. When you are in fight or flight, you need to know what your symptoms are telling you. So, for example, if you get tightness of chest, if you feel your throat swelling up, if you feel the heartbeat inside your neck, right? Or if you feel your heartbeat increasing, your breath increasing, you're sweating in your palms, if you feel like your eyes are very jumpy, any of those are telling you, hey, your nervous system is activated. You need to calm down a little bit, right? If you feel like your heart's beating out of your chest, right? So whenever you're triggered or overwhelmed, you need to stay present. You need to use this breath work. But again, you need to do it in non-stressful situations first. That way, when we get to those stressful situations, it's the natural reaction of the body to go into this state, if that makes sense. All right. Now, tool number 2 that we're going to talk about. So breath work was the first tool. Number 2 is movement. Let the energy out before it becomes destructive, okay? So when we have emotional overwhelm, it creates energy inside of us because we want to react, we want to say something. Emotions are biological, not just physiological. All right. When they build up without physical release, they get stored in the body, leading to muscle tension, headaches, fatigue, or rage. Right. If we allow it to go too long and we bottle this stuff up and we don't have an outlet, this is why doing physical training of some sort really helps with our anxiety, because it will release the emotion, right? And then all we're left with is the logic. We still have what happened to us, but by working out, by walking, by doing something somatic, it is going to release the negative energy attached to it, because we're going to help process through it. And now we're on a logical state as we're doing it. Anybody that's ever been in a fight, like verbally, a verbal altercation of some sort, this is why, like afterwards, like in the moment, you can't think of things, right? But then an hour later, right, you walk away from the conversation, you get in your car, you drive home, you get out of the car, you're doing dishes or something, and all of a sudden your brain's like, man, I should have said this, because now we're in a logic state of mind. So to get us into that logic state of mind faster, we need to walk it off. We need to A 10-minute brisk walk is typically the best way to do that. It's just get out of the house, like, and especially if you're a couple and you're having problems with fighting, just have a safe, time to say, hey, look, I need to take a 10-minute break to just go for a walk. If you know you're going to be emotionally reactive and you're having a hard time regulating, your partner should be understanding that they would rather you take that 10-minute walk than say something that you don't mean, then explode at you, something like that. So we need to do 10-minute walks, right? Or it could be as simple as just getting up and shaking off your body, like, right? I know that may sound crazy, but animals actually do this after a threat. They shake, right? And that's why a lot of dog behaviors, when you see a dog shake and all that stuff, it's them shaking off threats. I know that may sound crazy to some people, but it is scientifically proven. So if we shake out our arms, we just kind of let our muscles go loose and just shake real quick, it can really help us to recenter the body where we're at. Okay, it's again getting rid of some of the energy that we have now built up. Anybody that's ever gone through stressful situations will know, like, I didn't get in a fight, but why do I feel beat up like one? Because your body was tensing up and stressing. So these shaking it out, the 10-minute walk, gentle yoga, stretching, or even dancing can really help to lower that tension that's in the body, so that way the body doesn't hold on to the tension, hold on to the fight or flight, and hold on to the reaction, because that means that 7-8 hours later, if I'm still tense, I may still react out of fight or flight, even though the moment is well long gone, because I have not allowed myself to relax, because I've literally left myself into that position. Okay, your body is like a pressure cooker. If you don't release the steam regularly, it's going to explode, or it's even to shut down. This is typically where burnout happens, and we just try to store everything. We're like, I'll deal with it. We end up in burnout a lot of times, or we end up lashing out at somebody that didn't really deserve it. I've had that happen multiple times at work. I'd had a coworker one time. He used to forget to clock in every morning. We had one of those old school clock in things, and one day I went up to him like, hey, man, you forgot to clock in again. He bit my head off as if I had told him he was fired. And I was like, hey, man, it's calm. It's okay. I was just reminding you. And he's like, I'm sorry, man. I'm just dealing with all, this crazy stuff at home. And that's a clear sign that we've let that pressure cooker build up. We didn't let the steam off, and we let it out at somebody that we shouldn't have. So that right there is a reason to do things like getting up and walking. Now, this is the big one, right? Nutrition. This is tool number 3. We need to stop feeding the anxiety you're trying to escape, okay? So a lot of people, and a lot of people, you're not going to want to hear this, right? Because too many of us are dependent on these things. And I'm going to be the first to tell you, I was dependent on energy drinks until I did my fast last week. I had been like straight up addicted to energy drinks, drinking 2 and 3 a day to try to survive. But it was keeping my body in a fight or flight state almost permanently. Okay, so we're going to go over some chemicals and what they do, and you're going to see why it's actually keeping your body in that position, why I call it artificial anxiety. Right? So food and drink directly affect your brain chemistry. The wrong fuel sends your nervous system into chaos, even when your life isn't the problem right now. Like we could have minor issues and we're having problems regulating, right? So if we already know that we are having a hard time regulating our nervous system, we need to stay away from a few different things. Caffeine, taurine, guarana, sugar, artificial sweeteners, artificial dyes, and flavors. We're going to talk about that here shortly. Caffeine first, okay? If you're at 200 milligrams plus of caffeine, it triggers adrenaline. 50 grams here and there, which is typical cup of coffee, is okay. Once you pass 200 grams, the body's like, hey, we're trying to input all this stuff. I need to go ahead and put in adrenaline, okay, which then is going to signal fight or flight, even when nothing is going on in our lives. We could be sitting on a couch drinking too much energy drink and caffeine, and it can signal our fight or flight, and now we're having a panic attack, and we're like, man, this is my anxiety talking. No, that is the chemicals you're forcing into your body. You are essentially putting your foot on the gas pedal, driving 200 miles an hour now, going, why is the road so bumpy? I don't care how good your shock absorbers are and your ability to regulate your emotions are. When you're driving the car way faster than you should, the bumps are going to feel way heavier than they need to be. It's going to knock your car all over the place. So in order to order to come down from that, we have to start getting away from energy drinks. Because again, caffeine, 200 milligrams plus is going to trigger your adrenaline and your fight or flight response. The taurine and guarana it amplifies alertness and it mimics panic. Now, if fight or flight is supposed to increase your alertness, right? But it then decreases our ability to react out of logic. then what do you think taurine is doing to you at that point? Taurine is actually doing this very same thing. It's amplifying your alertness. Now, that means that also when you do have an actual true fight or flight state kind of issue, it's going to amplify that even more. So now, if I'm drinking an energy drink and I have a really bad something happen at work, I'm going to fly off the handle when I normally wouldn't because my fight or flight is that activated that I think this person is a physical threat to me. Okay, so I am literally putting myself on an anxiety trip on purpose by drinking energy drinks. I am literally saying, "There's a fire up ahead. Well, there's a candle burning up ahead. Let me just throw some gasoline on it as I walk by it." We know it's coming, but we still do it anyways. So coming out of off the energy drinks, coming off the amount of caffeine, we're really going to help ourselves out. This is why I think everybody's going, "I've got anxiety. I've got anxiety. I've got anxiety." You do not have anxiety. You have a problem with taurine, with caffeine, with guarana, with artificial sweeteners. Okay, with sugar can even do this. We'll talk about sugar in a minute. But these things are creating an anxiety in you that wouldn't be there because again, it's artificially dragging you at 200 miles an hour through life. As our alertness goes up, everything becomes more urgent to us. Right? It doesn't mean that it's actually that urgent, but it creates the perception of that. So we're literally forcing our brain to see everything as fight or flight, and we need to get out of that state. I don't think we have a problem with anxiety as a whole in general right now. I think we have a problem with substance abuses. And people will say, well, it's not substance abuse. It's not drugs, it's not this. It is no different in all honesty. It's a stimulant for the body. It's just the FDA has approved it. That's all. Alcohol is a depressant. We have marijuana in some states where you can have it as a depressant or a stimulant. You've got caffeine, a stimulant, a very, very hard stimulant at that point. Taurine is a stimulant. All of these things are stimulating your nervous system. When you hear the word stimulant, I want you to immediately think it's stimulating your nervous system. It's not. What else do you think it's stimulating? It can stimulate muscle growth or whatever if you're having certain ones, but it is going after your nervous system, and that's what causes the response in your hormones. It's your nervous system. So a stimulant is stimulating, and or the other side of it, when we call it depressant, it is depressing your nervous system and your ability to react. Your nervous system is your ability for you to send signals to your brain and for your brain to send signals out. So your nervous system is being controlled and stimulated, going faster, or depressed, going slower. So why would we want to be on these if we already have anxiety issues? And anxiety is a stimulant issue. It is an issue with our nervous system being overactive. Anxiety is an overactive nervous system. So we need to stay away from caffeine and taurine. We may have an anxiety disorder, and that's great. Well, it's not great, but it's great that we know that. But that also means that I have to stay away from those other things that are causing more problems. Now, sugar, artificial sweeteners. Sugar automatically spikes dopamine. So we have dopamine problems already because we are addicted to people and different things. It is the dopamine drug. It's the reward center of the brain. That's why we feel rewarded when we eat things that are sweet. We feel like we're getting a reward. That's why so many people have eating disorders that are reliant on sugar more than anything. We can have fat ones and people wanting fatty burgers and stuff like that. But typically most people that have long-term eating disorders, they always have something sugary somewhere in it. And typically it's the last thing that they eat, which then signals to their brain that they ate all this food, they had that sugar, ding, bell, dopamine, now want to do it again. And so sugar can have that problem. It can also have another problem that we do not see that can create massive problems within our nervous system. You eat sugar, you can create a candida overgrowth inside your gut. When that happens, a lot of the problems in our gut, not being able to absorb proteins and different things, happen because we have damaged the gut lining using things like sugar. The sugar then creates, again, candida, which is a yeast overgrowth. And that yeast, one of the things it does, right? Why does sugar cravings happen, right? Sugar cravings happen because as the candida are starved of sugar, they start to put off chemicals into your bloodstream that make you crave the sugar. So we have created a problem in our own body where now we feel dependent because this candida, this yeast that is growing inside of my stomach, cannot go without sugar. It needs sugar to be able to grow. If it's not getting the sugar, it throws a temper tantrum, puts chemicals into the bloodstream, and now the bloodstream then activates the brain saying, you need this. And that's what ends up happening, is that we are, again, creating anxiety, because as we want sugar in our life, we start to get almost like a rabid dog, and we have a problem because we are now trying to fix the dopamine response in our brain, but also to feed this candida that is overgrowing in our stomach. Okay. And it's very, very common to have a candida overgrowth and not even note it for years. Yeah, there are things that can kind of level it out, but 90% of the time, people will have a candida overgrowth, and that's what's causing the addiction to sugar. The only way to get out of that is to literally detox from sugar for a prolonged period, right? And if you have a sugar problem and you like the sweet taste, and you're like, oh, it's just I like sweet taste, go eat some fruit. That type of sugar is not bioavailable in the same way, so it's not going to break down the same way. The yeast can't eat it the same, so you're not going to have as much of a problem. Now, there's more information to all that. I'm just kind of talking in generalities here, but we need to be very, very careful of sugar, because it can cause lots of different problems beyond just the dopamine spikes that we have, right? Then we have artificial dyes and flavors. They disrupt the brain-gut connection and mood stability. All sorts of dyes have been like actually linked to different mood disorders within the body. So it's best if we try to steer clear of those as much as possible. So that pretty much sums up the nutrition part, right? Like, drinking energy drinks to calm down is like throwing gasoline on a fire and wondering why it's not helping. Or more precisely, it's like putting your brain in a speeding car, then blaming the road for being bumpy. The chaos isn't from your life, it's from the fuel you keep pouring into it, right? You imagine if you were, let's say you were working on an assembly line and you had to inspect one shoe every 5 minutes as it came down the line. You'd be fine. You'd be like, okay, I inspect this one, I inspect this one. You drinking the energy drink is now, it's perception. It's not actually happening, but it's what your brain thinks. Now, your brain thinks that they're coming at one every 30 seconds, and you have to do the same inspection. There becomes a backlog of emotions, and that backlog of emotions creates the overwhelm, the anxiety, and all these problems. So energy drinks speed up the speed at which we perceive the world happening at, and the urgency that we need it. If we want to come off that, we come off of those stimulants, those comfort drugs, so to speak, and it will allow us to start kind of slowing down life so we can process the emotions. When we think there's urgency, we tend to act out of that urgency, and we tend to act incorrectly and then wish and regret we didn't do it and then want to go later. And that's why I said earlier, when we act out of impulse, we now have created two problems. Now we have to fix the problem that's still there that we didn't fix the first time. And we've also created a problem of, now I've got regret for something I shouldn't have said, that's now created a more wider rift with this person, so to speak, that I didn't have to begin with, right? We find this all the time when two people get in a fight, and one will be like, you're a freaking bitch, or you're an asshole, pardon my language, but they go away from that relationship and they come back to like, I should have never said that. That was the wrong word to use. It was just activated. Now we've got to somehow repair the damage that's been done from that word being used in a fight, when we allowed our nervous system to be activated way beyond where it should be. And a lot of times it's because we are hopped up on chemicals like caffeine, like energy drinks, because we are telling ourselves we need it to survive, and we don't really need it to survive. So try to stay away from those things. And there's some foods too that can have a problem, right? And there's ways that we can get around some of the blood sugar crashes, like eating every 3 to 4 hours, prioritizing healthy fats, protein, and complex carbohydrates, not sugars and energy drinks, staying hydrated. Even a 2% dehydration in the body, 2% increases your cortisol levels. The body's stress level starts to go up as your dehydration increases or decreases, and then it automatically spikes cortisol, which actually should make you thirsty. That's why cortisol is there. It's there as a managing of stress. If you're under stress, it knows you need more water. So it's trying to get you to do that, okay? So it'll spike cortisol levels as soon as you're just 2% dehydrated. So when you have belly fat and all these things, and I always say hydration, man, hydration. Hydration is going to lower your cortisol levels automatically. If you're not losing weight but you're not staying hydrated, that's probably why, okay? And then adding magnesium-rich foods can help too, like your leafy greens, seeds, avocado, things like that. Those are all going to reduce inflammation. They're going to be very, very helpful with all the balance inside the body, okay? Now, we've talked about those three things. Let's talk about cognitive reframing, shifting the story, shifting the state. That's what I call cognitive reframing, right? We're going to shift the narrative, so to speak, in our head of what the lies that we're telling ourselves. I always say, like, identify the lie. Identify the lie. Once I've done that, or what may feel like a lie, may not actually be a lie, but it may feel like a lie to us, right? Your body doesn't respond to reality. It responds to your perception about reality. What you truly believe about reality is what your body responds to. If you tell yourself something bad is going to happen, you're going to notice automatically, right? Like, how many times have, like, you got a public speaking engagement, right? And months before, you don't think about it, but the day of, you think about going on stage and you think about the worst thing happening, and immediately your heart rate starts to go up. Your perception of what you think to be true is causing a physical reaction within your body. Okay? So your body is not responding to reality. It's the perception of threat that it's responding to. Well, with that being said, what I tell myself matters. So if I sit there and I want to reframe this, I don't allow my brain to say, oh, you're not good enough. I say, my brain is trying to tell me I'm not good enough, but I know better than that. I can reframe it. What I like to use are what I call but statements. I allow the negativity in my life. If I look in the mirror, I say, man, I don't look the way I want, but I'm working my ass off to get there. I'm reframing that, and I'm changing how I believe about that thing. I'm saying the but because it then changes and redirects that energy somewhere else. If I continue to tell myself something bad is going to happen, something bad is going to happen. It also gives you confirmation bias. If I think something bad is going to happen, I'm going to find evidence for it. Your body will find evidence for whatever you tell it you want, right? I use this analogy all the time. If I had a client sitting here in the room and they're looking at me, in this bookcase behind me, I got all sorts of different colored books. I say, look, look around the room real quick and find everything that you can find that is blue. Keep it to yourself, but find everything that you can find that's blue. Now close your eyes. As soon as they close their eyes, say, name everything you saw that was red. Their confirmation bias looked for everything blue. They didn't even see anything red. And a lot of times they can only name like maybe one, maybe two things. It's confirmation bias. When I keep telling myself something bad is going to happen, I'm only going to see the bad. The good things are going to go right by me, and I'm not going to see the good things. I'm going to see the bad. So I've got to reframe that, and I'm going to start saying things in a different manner. What I've got to do is start journaling those things. I have to find those things first. I have to find the lies, right? Replacing things like they don't care about me with maybe they're overwhelmed. Rewrite the narrative. Come up with an assumption that might actually be true. When somebody doesn't text you back, it doesn't mean that they don't care. But that's the lie we are telling ourselves. So there it is. We have identified the lie. They don't care about me. We need to reframe that into what else could be possible. So I always say, write a couple possible solutions to why they're not responding. Well, maybe they're overwhelmed. Well, maybe they got caught up in a meeting. Maybe their conference call ran long. Maybe they're doing, something else. Maybe their phone, they didn't hear their phone go off. There's 101 reasons other than they don't care. So we start reframing our negative thoughts into maybe they're overwhelmed. And I know at first it's going to be like, well, this isn't working. But you do this over time, and your body's natural reaction is to start going to default to this. So that way, over time, if I've told myself they don't care, nope, maybe they're overwhelmed. The very first time, it's going to be hard for me to say it. But after a while, I'll be like, it'll become your natural assumption is they're probably just overwhelmed, or they probably got another call, or, they probably didn't see the phone going off, and that's not their fault. We replace those things, right? We replace thoughts like, why is this happening to me? When we start thinking in the terms of why is this happening to me, we think that we're the victim of life, and we are not. We're the victim of our own choices, maybe, but we're not a victim of life. Things happen without our control. Well, then we start saying, what is this teaching me instead? Or what lesson can I pull from this? What silver lining is there? What good thing can I pull out of this? We reframe that. And I know it sounds dumb. It sounds like this crazy, like Zen master guru weird BS, right? But it works in time. It takes you having the guts to keep going even when people are laughing at you, to replace those negative thoughts. And eventually your brain starts to rewire itself all on its own. But a lot of people, they use this for a week and they say they don't see results. This culture today is so obsessed with getting results within a week that we have a problem. That's why people do a workout plan for 2 weeks. Like, I don't see the results, I'm quitting. Or I'm going to go to a different trainer. I'm going to go to a different workout plan. I have done the same workout for the last 3 years straight to get the physique I want. I didn't change my workout plans all the time, but society today wants immediate results. You're not going to get it with anything, especially if your nervous system has taken 20, 30 years to form into what it is now. You're not going to undo that in a week. Just like if you've taken 4 years of eating crap to get overweight, it's not going to be a week or 2 weeks. You're going to take a year to 2 years to really solidify your health in that realm. These things like cognitive reframing does not happen overnight. You need to go to them over and over and over again and combine all of these tools and be able to see help. So just listening to my Sunday Night Live at 5, it may click with you, but you've got to get intentional about doing these things on a regular basis. Otherwise, it's not going to get you anywhere, right? We've got, another way we can say is this is hard, okay? We can say this is hard. That's a negative thing, but we can reshift that. But I've gotten through worse. This is hard, but I'm learning to bounce back better. This is hard, but I'm going to show that I have, resilience. So we can reframe that with what we think and what we state out loud. That's why, as crazy as it sounds, I tell clients all the time, I want you to look in the mirror when you say this. I want you to record with your phone you saying these things and then watch it back. I know it sounds crazy, but it actually works. And if it actually works and you want relief, how bad do you really want that relief? If you really want it bad enough, you're going to try these techniques. And I promise you that you're actually going to stop the spiraling that's happening inside your brain. Now, your mind is like the movie director, right? So if I wanted to kind of sum up the whole cognitive reframing with an analogy here, I'd say your mind is like a movie director, right? You change the script and the whole scene feels different, even if the setting hasn't changed. So you could be in the same room, right? And we know that a lot of our TV sitcoms, they have different scenes in the same room, right? We're changing the script, which then changes the whole feel of what's going on in that room. The characters are the same, the set's the same, everything's the same, but I'm changing how it feels by saying different things. And we have to change the internal script that we have as the director to get the feel that we want. If we want positivity, we don't wallow in our self-pity and start saying like they don't care. We don't wallow in that. We change the script and we say something positive. Or we reframe it into a different assumption that's not necessarily a lie and is not even provable because we don't know enough information about them, okay? We do that over time, it's going to help. Now, the last thing I'll talk about, and if anybody wants a copy of my emotional wheel that I use, you hit me up on Instagram, on Facebook, however, and I'll send you a copy of the emotional wheel that I use with clients typically. Because we have 6 emotions, core emotions as a human being. Then underneath those 6, we have subsets. So the 6 are the major core emotions, then all the subsets that come out. It looks like a pie chart. So it'll have the 6 core emotions in the middle, and then branching off from each one of the cores are going to be other ones. So like when somebody says that they, anger is a core emotion, and they're right, there are subsets such as frustration, disappointment, hatred, loathing. There are multiple words we can use to describe it, right? So as I start to identify what I'm feeling better and associate a word with it, words bring down the stigma attached to what we're feeling. They bring down the stigma to be able to articulate an emotion. A person will be like, oh, I don't want to talk about my emotions. Typically, they don't want to talk about it because they can't even verbalize what they're feeling. And they don't want to go through the uncomfortable thing of just saying they're angry. They want to be able to articulate what they're saying, so they don't say anything because they don't even know how to articulate. They don't even know what to say. So you use the emotional wheel to actually name the emotion first. Then we understand the why. Because if I want to communicate any emotion to somebody, I have to know what I'm feeling and why I'm feeling it. And the reason why I say the why I'm feeling it is got to be there is because I have to know, is it this person that I'm angry with, or are they exhibiting a behavior that is causing me anger from something that somebody else did? I need to know if it's a projection or if this is previous trauma causing this problem. And I won't know that until I can name the word. Oh, this is disappointment. Ooh, this feels just like the disappointment from a previous relationship. And that's why I'm mad at this person, because that person disappointed me. It has nothing to do with this person. So now when I communicate that emotion to him, I can say, hey, look, I'm disappointed. I know it's not you. I know this is coming from prior trauma. That then takes their defenses down because they know that we're saying, we know you didn't mean to do this. And you didn't mean to trigger me, but I'm triggered by my past. But I'll never get there if I'm not able to at least name the emotion to begin with, right? So this identifying the emotion, that it helps us to release the tension that's there. And when we can't name something, imagine like when somebody's like, "What's the word? What's the word? What's the word?" We get frustrated because we can't figure out what word to use. That frustration is the tension that we feel between what we are feeling and what we want to say. So we use this expression or this identification to be able to express it. So now we can actually become identified with it, and it releases that tension, right? And then once we do that, we have to express it, because unexpressed emotion becomes resentment, aggression, anxiety. It becomes a lot of things that we build up, and then it becomes a lash out at some point in time to that person, right? So how do we do this? Well, the first thing we have to do again is say, name what it is. I'm not just upset. I feel invisible, right? Using I statements. When we name it, I feel. I know that may sound strange to some people, especially men. I know you may find it uncomfortable, but you have to use it. And again, it's a couple piece process here. You have to name the emotion. I feel invisible, right? And then we're going to own it. That's my my need showing up, not their failure, right? So I need to feel like this person sees and hears me. I'm owning it. I'm saying why I need this. I need to feel seen and heard. So I feel invisible because when you do this to me, it makes me feel like I'm not being seen and heard that I need, right? And then we're going to express that to that person. Say, "Can we talk? I've been holding in something that I need to release." And then you're going to say, I'm not just upset with you. I just feel invisible, right? That's me needing for you to see and hear me. And by naming it and expressing it that way, we're gonna ease the tension with that other person automatically. But again, I can't express an emotion if I can't actually say what I'm feeling. And I always go back to this analogy, and women are typically more guilty of this than men. But if I get a client in, they're like, "Oh, I know what kind of man I want." "Oh, okay. Well, describe him." "Well, I don't know. I mean, I know it I'll know it when I see it." That is coming from a place of emotion and not a place of logic. I have not named anything. I don't know what I'm and it's hard to communicate myself to somebody else if I haven't actually searched and written any of this stuff down. So when it comes to my emotions, I have to understand by doing the practice of naming emotions as they come up, so that way I can communicate it later. That same person that's like, "Oh man, like I don't know I know what I want, but I can't really describe it, but I know it when I'll see it." That same person is the type of person that would go to a car dealership and then end up coming out in a car they don't want because they didn't do the research prior to going to the car lot to figure out what options they wanted. They just said to themselves, "I'll know what I want when I see it." That's how you end up in an emotional decision, and then you end up in the car you don't want, and then 2 weeks later, you're like, "Man, this doesn't have heated seats. Man, this doesn't have window tinting. Man, this doesn't have the rims I want." And you can chase that stuff with your new car, but wouldn't it be better if you got in the right car to begin with and you didn't have to fix everything? We get in the wrong car in relationships. We get in the wrong relationship. We try to fix that relationship into what we want it to be instead of finding the relationship right off the bat that was the one we wanted. We are trying to make other people into what we want instead of finding the person that we want and going for them instead. But that's the best way I can explain emotional identification expression, is that if we don't learn how to use these words and express ourselves, we're never going to connect. The goal of romance and connection and love and friendship is to connect with other people and relate to them. We cannot do that if we are doing it based solely off of just things we like to do together. We have to relate off of emotions. And the only way we're going to do that is if we actually communicate them. And the only way we're going to communicate them is if we are able to communicate the full range of emotions, not just anger, not just happiness. We've got to go through all the other ones. And happiness actually isn't even one of the core emotions. Joy is, right? So when we start realizing that we didn't know what we didn't know about emotions, and that's why we couldn't express them. And if we can't express them, we cannot be connected to our partner. If we can't be connected to our partner, it's going to build resentment. If we build resentment, we're going to have a bad relationship. We're going to end up in a position where we're going to end up basically we will end up breaking up with them, not because the relationship can't be good, but because we have done things that are keeping the connection from being there, if that makes sense. Right? So like I said, if you need a copy of the emotional wheel, email me, Chris at tncoachingcollective.com, or you can go to my website, send a message there, or you can go to my Instagram, or you can go to my Facebook, send me a message. I do read all of my messages. I apologize if I don't ever get to you. I know lots of people send me messages, but I've got to prioritize between clients, people needing coaching, people having big questions with this stuff. So I don't get to every one of them. But if you need the emotional wheel, send me a message. I'll shoot you guys a copy of the wheel because it is very, very helpful. When you see it for the first time, you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know all of these emotions existed. I had no idea that these were even emotions. But it helps you to be able to articulate it better, right? And then journaling helps too. Like if you don't want to express it, at least journal what you're feeling, why you're feeling that way, and then figure out a way to formulate that into a conversation with somebody so you can connect with them. If you want a good relationship, you have to get comfortable having uncomfortable conversations. And if emotions make you feel uncomfortable, then you better get comfortable with those emotions so that way you can connect to a partner and have those uncomfortable conversations. But you are allowed to feel everything that you feel, okay? You just don't have to follow every feeling. You don't have to react to every negativity. You don't have to do anything about those emotions. Emotions are telling you something about yourself, and they're telling you something about the situation, but they are not always required to make judgment on. You're not having to act on all of them as they come up. So go through this live at 5 again, listen to it again, take as much as you can, get better at your nutrition needs to be better, learning the somatic techniques, the breathing techniques, the movement techniques. Using these techniques is going to if you do it all combined, it's going to help you regulate your emotions so you do not react to the world. You are responding to it. Because when you respond from confidence. When you react from arrogance, from ego. Okay? To remove your ego, you have to put a pause in between. And all of these things are going to help you with the pause. But that's all I got for you guys today. Hopefully you guys have a great rest of your Sunday. Thank you for joining me as always. And this will be available on YouTube tomorrow at some point in time. Until then, it will still be up on Facebook until I get it posted over there. But other than that, hope everybody has a great rest of their Sunday. As always, stay safe, keep the faith, and never let them grind you down. Thanks, guys.